Yes, the Bills are coming down to face the Chiefs. What can we learn from the Texans? And what does this rematch look like today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen. Go check out another Locked On show for your next one when we're done here. We're brought to you by Game Time. You can download that app, create your account, and use our code Locked On NFL, and that's going to get you $20 off of your first purchase. No ifs, ands, or buts. Get after it. We are going to get after it today as well, as we know the opponent. We got to take a little bit from this Texans game, apply it towards what comes next against the Bills as we look forward to the Bills. We are going to have Matt Derrick tomorrow. We're going to have the crossover with Joe Moreno the day after that, and we're going to preview the whole thing, knock it down, give you the predictions and everything you need to know going into it for our Friday preview, so do not miss the rest of this week. I'm pretty excited about it. Chris is too. Over there at Chiefs Corner, you can go find him. I'm Brian at NFL33.com.
You got that one right.
Hey, 1 out of 2 ain't terrible. You can also find myself at RGR Football as well as RogueAPC.com. If you want that and all the late-breaking details, hit our text line at 816-357-8781, and we will get you up to date. So today we're going to take a look at the deeper dive. What did the film show? What are our takeaways from the Texans? That's coming up later in the show. The O-line has to be maximizing Mahomes. They are the force multiplier for what Patrick Mahomes is. How do they do that? And what's the real talk coming out of One Arrowhead Drive today? But we start back where we left off last night. It's an old rivalry. It is one that has been very storied. We have nicknames for half of the games. It all comes down to believe. 13 seconds. That's how narrow these margins have been. And the more that I go and look at what the Bills just accomplished in the snow, the more I believe that this is going to come down to the same thing. It is as much, in my opinion, about execution as it is clock management to make sure that this is the last possession belongs to the Chiefs.
That's what you got to hope. The one thing you look at this game, and it always seems to come down to who has the ball last. And you have to hope that you're the team that has the ball last. The couple times it hasn't come down to having the ball last, it's generally been a situation where Buffalo has actually run away with the game to an extent. They beat the Chiefs by more than one score, and Kansas City wasn't able to get it done. I'm not going to say that's not always the case, but the reality is that this game is probably going to be a nail biter, and it's probably going to come down to a last second score or something that happens the last 30 seconds of the game. Obviously, if you're the Bills, you are in a situation where you hope that it doesn't come down to, 15 seconds left in the game and you're kicking the ball off, but we'll see how that goes.
Let's hope that it comes a little bit cleaner than that, because I do think there is a possibility here that maybe we don't end up with the same type of scenario. It may be a little bit more drawn out. I think it'll be neck and neck, but at some point somebody's got to step away. And it just feels to me like the way everything's been building, I don't think Josh Allen's output the other night was anything that scares me. Usually he's the catalyst that does scare me. Now, it was a snow game, and you can't take as much away from that. He was still lethal on the ground, with his version of that tush push and everything that you got to watch out for. It's about situational ball and controlling what Josh can do to you as a defense. And that's what I think, maybe even more so than the offense, has to be the cornerstone of this game plan, is how you deal with him. And I do think, if it's me, we'll talk more about this on Friday as we lay out the whole kind of thing, but I got to be looking to a guy that doesn't know any better. I think one of the keys, a lot of people want Leo Chenal to just shadow Josh a lot and be that kind of like engage and hover type spy, not like a true 5-6 yards off the ball kind of spy, because if you give Josh an angle, he's going to take advantage of it even at that depth. So you got to be a little closer to the line. I want to see Jaden Hicks up there, and I want to see him stalking the big quarterback, because I do think he has that rare combination of speed and adjustability as well as some size that he might be the answer to the Josh Allen puzzle.
Yeah, and they don't have Willie Gay anymore. I mean, Willie Gay is a guy that they were able to kind of put in that position in the past and be able to do that. Chenal is fierce. He can go down, he can thump, he can attack, and he can be that guy. But you're right, you don't want him 5 or 6 yards off the ball trying to get Josh Allen in the backfield when Josh is deciding he's going to run. So that's not a great situation for Chenal to be in. I'm not going to be surprised if it doesn't happen a couple of times in the game, just because I do think that that's probably something that they're going to look at and they're going to at least try it. But you got to hope that that's not something that they go too late in the game, because I don't think that that's going to work out well for the Chiefs. I like the idea of having Hicks be that guy, but at the same time, are you going to have him on the field is going to be my question in that regard, because he's the fourth safety. Are you going to be using Connor in a safety role, or are you going to be using him as a corner? And because to me, I don't think that – I know they're kind of interchangeable in some ways, but I don't know that they're going to have Hicks on the field if they're not going to have Connor on the field doing something else. So maybe they go that direction. Maybe they prove me wrong and they're deciding that he can be that guy. We'll see. It's not something that they've really done this season. Hicks wasn't ready the last time they played Buffalo.
Right.
I do think he's a lot closer to being a guy that can do that and be ready for that type of role now, though.
Well, I look in Connor's return as well as Brian Cook. He went out with the injury and had to come back in. They both gave up the most yards in the air against this last one. Obviously, Trent McDuffie gave up one big play. But outside of that, I think targetable on the safeties is probably what the Bills are going to want to do. So I feel like changing it up, and maybe that breath of fresh air, somebody new, somebody who Josh can see film on but hasn't been on the field with as much. I still think that's like the subtle play that might actually get you some advantage.
Well, it's going to be intriguing to see what they do, because they got to figure out something for Josh. But you know that Steve Spagnuolo is going to have something in his bag of tricks for him, and they're going to pull it out. And I don't know if it's going to be after watching what they did to the Texans. And I know that the Texans line isn't what the isn't what the Buffalo Bills line is. The Bills have a better offensive line than the Texans do. But Spagnuolo pulled out a bunch of blitzes and a bunch of pressure, and he showed that this team can get pressure and got 8 sacks. I do think that if you can find a way to get to Josh Allen early, I'm not going to say that it's going to cause him to break down and not be able to do anything, but I do think it could get to a point where he is maybe running a little bit more and maybe makes a mistake that he hasn't made this season because he hasn't been under a ton of pressure. So I do think that could come into play as well.
I think that I have a concept for how I would attack it. I'm going to lay it out for you guys on Friday, so don't miss that. But it's the back and the forth of this battle, not just in the score, but with the coordinators versus the quarterbacks on both sides that I think are going to be the game changers. But how do you do that? And how do you take some of that off of your quarterback? Well, you protect him. And that's how you maximize Pat Mahomes. We're going to discover all of that coming up next. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, pretty much anything, even comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement is absolutely unbelievable, especially if it's Zach Bryan or somebody that you really dig. Right now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events, whether it's a new feature, and this one really works, Game Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff. You only get the incredible deals on the great seats that you're looking for. You don't have to waste time searching for thousands of tickets on and off, back and forth. I love this, and I've used it most recently on a comedy show. We did something over New Year's. It was great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That'll get you $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. You can get that much more on the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network, especially with so few teams left in these playoffs. You might want to get a listen to the coming conflicts. They are very telling. Now, the secret to Pat Mahomes, and I think you've got a stat that I think really illustrates this, but getting him to the point where it's less experimentation, where you know what you want to do, and it's less hunting and hoping for guys to come open and that kind of thing. The quick game certainly helped, and stabilizing the left tackle position certainly helped. It's up to the offensive line to maximize Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid had some, I think, tepid words for the offensive line today. If you ask some of the ex-offensive linemen who played for Andy, they'll tell you that, that level of niceness actually means you're not doing very well. You better pick up your game. I think that's really intriguing because this is maybe the closest group to Andy Reid on any given roster is the O-line. But this is how you get the championship. You have to take the O-line play up a level or two at this point over what we just saw over the Texans.
Yeah, and that's a problem. I will say this. I think the Texans have a very good pass rush. And I think that they probably have a better interior pass rush than the Buffalo Bills do. And I would say that I don't know that I would say that their pass rush, well, their outside pass rush might be even better than the Bills as well. So you're going up against a defensive line that may be better than what Buffalo has. It's not. I'm not saying it's well above what the Bills have, but Buffalo doesn't have the same type of pass rush coming from the outside with Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter, and their interior. While they do have Oliver in the middle of the interior, they don't have 3 or 4 guys that can kind of get after the passer to an extent. So I do think that it's going to. I think it'll be better just because of who they're playing. But the other side of that is can they get to a point where it can be even better? And to me, that goes back to having a situation where Joe Thuney goes back to left guard. If you can get him back to left guard, you immediately improve the interior and you get to a guy that's basically been playing at an all-pro level all season long as your left guard. And hopefully Humphreys can give you at least a little bit and play just even average. If he can do that, it's an upgrade from what they've had for the most part for the season throughout the year at left tackle. Thuney's been playing well, but the problem is when you have interior pressure and you have guys that aren't used to playing next to each other, and you have a guy like Caliendo come in, quick pass rush is going to create problems, and it happens for every single team and every single year. So to me, I'd love to see Thuney get back there and really help. And the stat you're talking about is Kansas City. There's been 280 turnovers since week 12. Kansas City has zero since week 12. It's the longest such streak in NFL history in the Super Bowl era.
I will take it. Left, right, and center. That's a lot of turnovers. Just the natural reaction to this season. Like, that is a lot of turnovers just since week 12. I know there's an extra week, folks, but still, that is a lot. And for the Chiefs to have zero, that tells me that the cognizance with what they're playing is about not making it easy on the other team. Maybe they got a little sick of all these tight games. I certainly hope that that's the way that it goes. They need to keep that up.
Well, look at what happened to the Detroit Lions, the number 1 seed in the NFC. They go in and they turn the ball over. I think it was 5 times against.
It'll get you.
5 turnovers. You cannot win a game if you turn the ball over 5 times. I don't care who you're playing.
No.
And this is the playoffs.
You might not be able to win a game if you turn the ball over at all. Period. If you have a number that is not a 0, you might not be able to win a playoff game at this point. In a championship game, it goes up to that much more. I will tell you this, though. The other thing that does trigger me about what you said is that you have an elite interior 3, one of which has not been playing there for several weeks. And when you take a look at where you can make your living setting things up, keeping the ball away from Josh Allen, and why not give Josh Allen the Patrick Mahomes treatment? Part of the game plan should be to keep the ball out of his hands.
Yep.
So put Joe Thuney back inside, because the best run defenders last week against Derrick Henry from Baltimore, like a guy that you have to stop, the best run defenders for the Buffalo Bills came up to be AJ Epinesa and Greg Rousseau. They didn't do much in the pass rush game. Neither of them, I think, even produced a pressure, but they slowed that run game down. And so if they're going to be out there on the edges, fine, leave them there. Put your power on the interior 3 and grind down at Oliver. You can double team him. He's still a lighter playing guy. Yes, he's a good player, but you can move him out of there. You can move Daquan Jones. You can get traction on the ground. And I don't care who the running back is at that point. I do think they still need to platoon them. But I think the key to getting any of that precursor set up to protect Mahomes is Joe Thuney.
Yeah, and to be clear, Ed Oliver isn't Chris Jones. And he's a very good defensive tackle, but he's probably at least 2 levels under Chris Jones, I would say. I'd say Chris Jones is still playing at all-pro level and can take over games by himself. Ed Oliver can take over games at times, but it isn't to the extent that Chris Jones can. And so they're not comparable players. And I do think that when you look at this situation, if you get your interior 3 back to who they've been most of the season, and you give Patrick that interior presence, you can do things at left tackle to make left tackle okay. You can ship with the running back. You can put Hendershot out there for half the plays for all I care. Generally speaking, Mahomes is only going to 2 or 3 targets anyway. You don't need to have 5 out in the pattern to try to get it done every single time. And worst case scenario, if you put Hendershot out there to help chip, have him as a dump off.
Mm-hmm. The delay routes are really working across the league, and particularly for the Chiefs of late. Kelce just had a big play off of one this last week as well. When you get the defense to see something that convinces them it's not a threat, they will go away from it. That is the whole subterfuge between doing a not just a chip, but an elongated help block out to a late release. I think that's the name of the game, especially if it's across the middle, so that Patrick has easy access to it when he has to step in the pocket. I think that's going to be key. I also think that there are a couple of guys that can contribute on the other side that we really have to be careful of, but you had more thoughts. Sorry.
No, you're good. I think the big thing that you look at here is you look back at who the Bills have played. And outside of the Broncos, they have allowed 44 points in week 14, 44 points in week 14, 42 points in week 15, 21 to the Patriots, 14 to the Jets. And then they lost to the Patriots and allowed 23 points again. And then obviously they did much better against the Denver Broncos a couple of weeks ago and only allowed 7 points. But this is not a defense that you should be worried about. This is a defense you should be able to light up and score, 24, 30, 31 points and it not be a hard situational thing. I do think that it's obvious that the Bills team is going to be ready for what the Chiefs do. But again, I go back to what I said the last time we talked. Kansas City's been holding stuff back all season, and there's no way that Andy Reid got into his bag of tricks against the Texans like I thought he was going to. And maybe it was because he knew who was going to be seen in the AFC Championship game. And I don't want to get the cart beyond the horse. I don't want to get the cart too far ahead, but you get to a point where you look at this and say, okay, whoever wins this game is likely going to be the Super Bowl winner at this point. The biggest threat in the NFC is gone in the Detroit Lions. I'm not saying that the NFC can't win it. I'm just saying, generally speaking, I feel pretty good. If the Chiefs win, they're going to win the Super Bowl because I think the AFC is that much better than the NFC right now.
I believe in the Chiefs, but I think Saquon has something to say about that.
That's true too.
But
the Chiefs have done so good against running backs this season compared to what they've done in the past.
The man's on a mission. We will talk about the matchup when it comes to it. Let's see what happens. We're going to get through this one. Who else is making some noise? Who do we have to watch for? The deeper dive is coming up next. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. Prize Picks has daily fantasy sports and makes it accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your money. Run your game all season long at Prize Picks. They make it simple, and they even invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So sign up today and you can get $50 instantly when you play a $5 lineup. You don't even have to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the Game Time app and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. Super simple. Download that app, use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and get that $50 bonus for playing a $5 lineup. Super easy over at Prize Picks. I'm glad that you brought up the pass game. And folks, you want to check out everything Chris is doing over at KC Chiefs Corner. I'll have some thoughts. The Mike Borgonzi piece should go up tomorrow on NFL33.com. And some late news with our friends and former Chiefs over at the Bears. Looks like they have a coach on the way, one that I'm pretty excited about and some that's baffling others. You can check all that out, and we appreciate you checking out our other forms. But everything starts and flows from this show. And so we always circle back to taking a deeper look. Upon further review, we call this fairly often. And 2 things stand out to me. And it feels like kind of like, the eye of the storm, the lull before the wave crashes. 2 targets each for Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox last week. That's it. 11 yards between them. Now, these are 2 guys that have had clutch plays against the Chiefs repeatedly for a while. And while they're sleeping dormantly, I think I'm more scared of them right now than I am Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper, each who got a target, had 1 catch for 5 yards between those 2. Who scares you more?
Tight ends. It's not even close. Keon Coleman may have a decent game. Amari Cooper could maybe have a decent game, but he is not on the same level as a guy like Stephon Diggs was. So to me, I feel like the wide receivers are going to be somebody that I'm not going to say they don't have somebody that can beat you, because they do. They have good guys, and Josh Allen is phenomenal. And the reality is go back and watch some of the plays that CJ Stroud made. It was the quarterback making the play, not necessarily the routes were great. The defense was there in some senses, but the quarterback made a better throw. Josh Allen is better than CJ Stroud. He's going to make plays in this game. That's just the reality of it. But when you look at what has hampered Kansas City and what they have struggled with all year long, it's guarding the tight ends. And now they're in a situation where they're going up against a team that has two of them that play very, very good football. And that is something that I don't think that this team has an answer for right now.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And not to throw shade at the Eagles or Saquon Barkley, but great game. He looked like he could cut in the snow. James Cook did as well. James Cook is light on his feet. He is the type of back that gives Chiefs a little bit of trouble. And so I do think you have to pay attention to them. It feels very much like, on reviewing that Bills game, that it's almost like they also were able to go with a game plan that kept them away from their tendencies the Chiefs always have to key on and have to be aware of. And this really sets this battle up to be a blow for blow. Hey, what else do you have left to throw at us that we don't know about?
It's going to be fun. I do think that you look at this game, and Kansas City is, they're going to have all these tendencies that they're going to be looking at for the Bills, trying to figure out, okay, what should we expect on defense? What should we expect their defense to do to us when we're on offense? And how are we going to take advantage of anything that they have a tendency to do? The other issue that you run into is the Bills don't have a lot of game tape and a lot of experience going up against this version of this Chiefs offense. Because go back and watch last week's game. They basically did what they've done a lot of the last 2 years, which is run the offense through a guy like Travis Kelce and the running game. They didn't really use the other wide receivers in that game. You didn't have a guy like Xavier Worthy last year, but he has been a focal point all season this year. Now you have Hollywood Brown. Now you have DeAndre Hopkins. Both those guys haven't really been involved in the offense the past couple of weeks. That's not going to be a tendency if you're studying the game film that you're going to see and say, we need to stop this and this because this is what they're doing. But this is exactly what you are holding those types of players for, because this is the moment that they are going to want to go out and do the thing. And one of the things I loved hearing from Matt Matt on Sunday or on Saturday, I guess, because the Chiefs played Saturday, was he taught when talking to DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't have a catch. First time he had a catch in his career in the playoffs or in a very long time, even in the regular season. But he doesn't care. Like, maybe afterwards he kind of cared a little bit, but at the same time, all he cares about is winning. Yeah. That is the exact same attitude Travis Kelce has. He has said it multiple times. They were talking about it during the game. He doesn't care if he gets 100 yards. Yeah, he got 100 yards the last game. I'm sure he was happy that he got 100 yards and he performed and he was able to help his team win. But all he cares about is winning. If he can help them win, even if he's blocking, he's happy. DeAndre Hopkins, he wants a chance to wear a ring. It's all about the ring at this point. It's not about their stats. It's, I want a ring for this finger.
Yep. And I'll tell you this, I think it goes even farther than that, because when you talk or you hear Xavier Worthy talk about DeAndre Hopkins and the influence he's had in that room already, that just doubles down, even on guys that have been there before. Obviously X has not, but Hollywood's new to this roster. Hop's new to this roster, right? Like Juju and Justin have some experience, but the top three guys that we're talking about throwing passes to in this coming weekend have not been on this roster, have not been through it before this way. It's new to them. They're still hungry for it. And that keeps everything flowing from the top of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce all the way down.
Yeah, and you notice who started? It wasn't DeAndre Hopkins. It wasn't Hollywood Brown. It was Juju Smith-Schuster. And that I found very interesting. And Juju didn't have a big role in the offense going into the regular season and even into the playoff game. I don't think he played against the Broncos. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter. Point is, him starting over those other two guys says a lot to me. It's not necessarily just about looking at what is the best thing that we can do. It's, we know what Juju can do. We're going to go put him out in this position. And we don't care if he gets a lot of targets, because that's not necessarily what our game plan is. He can do some certain things that we like, and that's going to be enough for us.
Yeah, and when you take a deeper look, it's not just about the start. He outsnapped DeAndre Hopkins by a good margin. He outsnapped Justin Watson. Only Xavier Worthy and Marquis Brown played more than him. So it's not just the status of being the starter. It's the fact that you are contributing in a way that doesn't mean targets.
And how crazy is it that Marquis Brown had that many snaps and didn't get that many targets? Like, to me, that says a lot. And I don't think it's I know I feel like it's a conspiracy theory on my part. I really think that they're purposely not going that direction in some way, in some instances where I think that they will in this game against the Bills, because they know that they've been up against the Bills so many different times. You have to have something different in your pocket to pull out and do that. They don't know what's coming. And you have the best part about it is, like I said, the Bills have had a bad defense all season long. And the one thing that you're going to get in is go into this game, they're going to be fired up. They're going to have an idea of what the Chiefs have done. But a bad defense seeing new things is not going to stick to their scheme very well, generally speaking.
It's a physical game. You got to bring the physicality to
Absolutely
win at this level. But this wins more ball games. That's the way it goes. Marquis Brown, I just pulled it up because I wanted to double check this. Rather, it's not just my perception. It is borne out in the stats. The most snaps he's played, the most routes he's run has increased in this divisional round. Was the most snaps that he's played. It's the fewest targets. I think you are completely onto something, because this is okay, we tried a few things out. We got him warmed up. Now we're going to shut him down and just lie in the weeds. I put it out last week over on RGR, but I will say it again here. Marquis Brown is the secret weapon that is hiding in plain sight.
16 snaps for DeAndre Hopkins. 16. And I'm sorry, but you can't tell me it's because he can't play. We've seen enough. We know he can play. That's not it. And maybe part of it is the trade, and maybe they're looking at the snap counts that closely and saying, right now, we didn't need him in that game. We know we didn't need him in that game, so we're going to keep his snap count low, and we're going to use him a lot in this game, in the Super Bowl, and, it's not going to cost us a fourth-round pick.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe that's what they're looking at. And I honestly think that if they got to a point where they needed DeAndre Hopkins, they would have used him more. But the way that game went against the Texans, it was comfortable enough. They didn't feel like they needed to have him in there. So you use Juju Smith-Schuster in his place, who does a lot of similar things. He's not the threat passing-wise, but they were trying to run more than they were trying to pass at that point.
It's part of a plan. It's part of a longer plan. We're going to get to all of it. Tomorrow, we're going to get insight from Matt Derrick inside the building over at One Arrowhead Drive, tell you where we are going there, get his impressions as well. Thursday, we're going to lock it down with Joe Marino. We're going to get some insight. We're going to not give him any information. I'll promise you that. And we're going to see what we can do in this battle as the battle of the Locked On hosts commences on Thursday. And then we will break it all down for you, give you our predictions, our preview, what we would do and what we want to see them do in order to get themselves back into a third consecutive Super Bowl. We thank you guys for being with us. We couldn't do it without you. Make sure that you like, sub, hit the bell, hit another Locked On show for your next one. Check out KC Chiefs Corner, NFL 33, and RGR Football. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.